Welcome back to the Kush Scott channel, everyone. This will be another episode of the Camper Hack series, and as you can see, I'm in the camper, and once again I've hacked my camper apart. This time I did it a little more than I did last time, so I'm pretty excited to tell you what's going on. So in the last episode, I installed the diesel heater. That thing's been working like a champ for the past 2-3 weeks now. I'll review that on a different video, but it has inspired me to dive in a little bit deeper. I know condensation is a little bit of an issue with these old metal campers, and this camper is no exception. So over the past 3 years that I've owned this, I've done a couple little patch jobs here and there. I started off the Camper Hack series by cutting out the floor and hard mounting the camper to the truck bed, and then I redid the front half of the camper because it had some water damage, and there are little pinholes through the all throughout the aluminum. The window seals were cracking and leaked. The hatch was leaking, so I had to redo all of that. And I thought, we'd be good this year to just keep on camping and doing what we're doing. I replaced all the insulation with rigid foam board insulation, put brand new panels up and everything, and had a great year with it. And now leaking is not the issue. It's condensation building up, draining down the walls, and rotting out the plywood. And so I thought I just only had a couple panels to pull and redo. So I pulled them, realized there was a lot of condensation behind those rigid foam boards, and so I took out a couple more pieces, and then I found that every piece that I took out, there was just a ton of condensation built up. And so I went even further, and I started ripping into the back half just to see what that looked like, because it still had that 1-inch pink insulation, fiberglass insulation, and that was absolutely soaked. And there's even sections that were missing it altogether from whoever rebuilt this camper before I owned it. And so once I seen that one section, it was like, okay. It's like, well, there's an obvious big wet spot at the bottom of this section because there's no insulation at top. So like, I might as well rip out the cabinets, the rear wall, everything. I'll show you here in a minute, and just redo it. But I didn't want to use the same insulation. I didn't want to use any boards. I didn't want to have any gaps between the aluminum. I live in a rainforest in Alaska, and we have some pretty extreme temperatures from hot to cold, and it's usually wet and humid. Rains here more than it does not rain. It's like rain, snow, wind blowing. It's always crappy weather, and so we're always bringing in wet clothes, and there's usually at least 2 people and 3 or more dogs in this little camper, so condensation in the interior is a big thing. But also, if we do a lot of winter camping in this thing, so we create a lot of heat on the inside, and that contacts the cold aluminum exterior, which is where all the condensation builds up. So to remedy all of that this next time through, hopefully the last time, I picked up some 2-part insulation foam that I will show you here in just a second. So here's our 2-part foam insulation kit. Comes with everything that a person needs to do the job. Comes with hoses. Our 2 parts here. Comes with a gun, extra nozzles, instructions on how to do it. This is a closed cell spray foam insulation, meaning that it's impermeable. There's no water. Water cannot get through this at all. So once it's sealed, it acts as a vapor barrier as well. And I think it will expand to about a 1/2 inch. So this stuff is great for shallow insulation and a high R rating. I think this thing has an R7 rating. Let's see. Doesn't actually say, but it's pretty good, and it's better than anything else that I've had in here so far. I'm going to spray it directly on the aluminum, which is going to fill all of these gaps, and it's going to attach itself directly to the aluminum, and therefore no insulation will form. Another thing that I like about the 2-part spray insulation with the gun, it's going to be nice and clean as opposed to a can. Most of the cans are open cell spray foam insulation. Open cell will let water through, which is not going to be good for this application. but it is better for other applications. Like say you can spray it on concrete and stuff, and so as the concrete dries out, the vapors will be able to escape instead of rotting out your concrete. That's not what we need here. If I used an open cell spray foam in my camper with the amount of moisture that this camper experiences, it would rot the foam, it would rot the frame, and it would rot the plywood that I'm going to use to cover my walls. One section that I ran into a little problem with, like this, I tried prying this up thinking that this is just plywood that I can pry up, but you can't, or I can't, because it's laid underneath the frame all the way around, and as you can see, when I was trying to lift it up, I was breaking it, but it did allow me to see underneath the plywood, and underneath the plywood is just straight up aluminum. There's no spacing or support or whatsoever. It's just aluminum, and then topped off with this plywood. So that sucks. I didn't want to cut it out and replace it, because like everything on here, everything's screwed from the outside of the frame in, and so to get a proper job, I'd have to take off all the skin and remove all the screws. As you can see, there's some screws right here that I just cut off with an angle grinder. Some other ones I just pounded in. You can see it's all screwed and stapled from the outside in, which is a big pain in the ass. I got a couple more I gotta do here. This was another problem section because this is hard mounted in there now. And it's still winter out here, so I'm not gonna take anything apart. I'm just gonna spray in there and then cover with plywood. Do what we do here. None of this had any insulation whatsoever, so this, all that did was just pool up with condensation and kind of deteriorate that area. So I'm gonna definitely hit in there and fill all of that with the 2-part spray foam insulation. Another thing that I'm gonna do, since I have the whole thing, all the interior ripped apart, is you'll see I have little pieces of wood stuck up in the frame everywhere. This is going to help me, it's going to help the low spots, or get rid of the low spots where water likes to pool up. So instead of pooling up, it's going to be able to shed a little easier. So that'll be nice. So another nice thing about this spray foam insulation is that I believe it's right around like 2 pounds per square foot. I think somebody can correct me in the comments. So it's dense, it's thick, it's rigid, and it helps structurally. So as you can see, there's a lot of 1x2s comprising the frame of this camper, and so having that extra rigid foam all throughout the ceiling and the walls, you know, it will add a little bit of weight, but it is going to add some structural integrity. And it is, where does it say here? So it's good for sound deadening, it has a Class A fire resistance, so that's nice because, you know, these old campers are tinder boxes, so having that fire resistance is going to help. Sound deadening is nice, especially when it's raining and blowing outside. It won't sound like you're camping in a tin can, because you are. It also stops air infiltration, so if there's any air leaks, water leaks, any holes, any pinholes like these that I've filled with a waterproofing adhesive there. I did a patch job on the roof. You can see that in one of the other videos, but I also patched it up on the interior. There's a couple in here as well. It's going to go ahead and fill those, expand, waterproof it, and a huge contributing factor to condensation building up in your walls is airflow moving in and moving out. Alright, so let's talk a little bit more preparation here. So you're going to want to use a respirator when doing this. It's very toxic. It's a polyurethane spray foam insulation, and you don't want to inhale this stuff, and you don't want it adhering to your lungs and expanding. It will mess you up. Also, it's extremely sticky, so go ahead and get yourself one of these Tyvek suits to cover yourself, cover your hair, cover your upper, lower. You can get the little booties as well for your shoes, because it will get on your shoes. I'm just going to use grocery bags wrap them around my shoes and call it good, so that I didn't have to buy a huge bundle of something I'm only going to use once. For what I have learned from other people who have done this, preparation is probably about 90% of the work is preparation. Go ahead and cover your windows with whatever you got. I had some old trash bag things that came with my portable camping shitter, and upon closer inspection, you know, these bags weren't gonna do it for me. I need something more industrial strength, so I didn't feel bad about sacrificing it. I used some painter's tape, some grocery bags. Over here it had some painter's paper and tape, so I used that. Just whatever you got laying around. Also cover your floor. I'll go ahead and show you here. I got my floor covered with cardboard. I use cardboard instead of painting cloth because you will drip this shit on the floor, and if you have painter's cloth and you step on sticky insulation, as soon as you take one step, you're gonna drag the painter's cloth with you, and it's gonna be a huge pain in the ass. So just lay down some plywood or some cardboard, save yourself some time. I covered my benches with these old work tarps that are covered in dirt and oil, so if they get insulation on them, it's not going to hurt my feelings, but it will be easier for cleanup in the long run. Not quite sure what to expect. I've never done anything like this before, so this will be a learning experience for me. Kind of excited to do it. Always nice to learn something new. So one thing that we're going to do with this spray foam insulation is you want to heat it up to 75-80 degrees. I brought this thing inside yesterday, and I've had it running sitting by the heater all day and night and good part of today, and I've cranked up the heat in here. I turned it down so I can record this video, but I had it cranked way up, and I'm gonna continue to let that blow or sit on the floor and heat up, because you want all the chemicals and everything in there to have a lower viscosity so that it mixes and expands. They also recommend that the surface that you are applying it to is at least 75 degrees. So when I crank up the heat, I don't think that's going to be too much of an issue for the walls. It will be a little bit of an issue for the ceiling, because I do have a little bit of snow up there, so we'll see. I'm going to let it go. Alright guys, we're about ready to spray and pray here. The kit is pretty complete. Comes with a bunch of nozzles. It comes with the tools so you can put the hoses on. Mine are already installed. The two types of nozzles that you have are a spray pattern, or a nice wide fan, or you got more of a cone shape. I think I'm going to go with the fan. Also comes with a little bit of grease here so you can grease your tips. I guess when you let it sit for too long, it'll start to set in here, so if you gotta go do something and it takes longer than 30 seconds or so, then you'll want to change your tip. Also comes with some glasses, gloves, and show you the kit here. Here's what the kit looks like. So on mine, the hoses were already attached. There's the gun. Shook the shit out of both of those, and right now I got the heat pointing at them because you want it around 75-80 degrees to keep that viscosity down. Here's the gun. Looks like it's pretty simple here. This is your safety, so it's on. Can't press the trigger. Hold on, there we go. So I just broke the safety. Okay, so it looks like we'll be all systems freaking go here. I am going to go ahead and crank both nozzles, and I'm going to bleed the lines into the box that it came in. So you're going to want to leave the tip off at first, make sure that you've cleared the lines of all air, make sure that both tanks are flowing, and so that you get a nice mixture so that it cures. And then I'm going to go to town up here first and start working my way back. One-man band here, so I'm going to try to show you as much as I can, but I'll at least show you this first part. Once I have to move the camera and get to the back, it might be a little different here. Okay, make sure I got things out of my way. I am in full painter's battle rattle here. Got my Tyvek suit on. I got grocery bags tied around my shoes. I didn't buy a hood, so hopefully this will do well enough. It's a shirt that I guess I can ruin. Got my respirator all hooked up here, so I should be covered. Literally. Gotta say, it's really hot in here, so I'm gonna try to move quick but do a good job at the same time, because it's getting hot in this Tyvek suit. I'm not wearing pants under this either, and it's hot. Make sure there's no shit in here. Okay. Head is covered. Glasses. Tip is greased. Okay, cans are on. Oh yeah, we got sprayage. Okay. Yippee-ki-yay.
stars. I wanna take a trip to Mars. Nothing can break me. So try not to hold me down. Feel alive when I'm in this town. Look at these beautiful stars. I wanna drive a faster car. Nothing can break me, no, nothing can break me. Try not to hold me down. Feel alive when I'm in this town. Look at these beautiful stars. I wanna take a trip to Mars. Nothing can break me, no, nothing can break me. Look at these beautiful stars. I wanna drive a faster car. I'm gonna be myself. I'm gonna be someone else. I'm gonna be myself. I'm gonna be someone else. I'm gonna skip my breaks. I'm gonna make mistakes. I'm gonna skip my breaks. I'm gonna make mistakes. Try not to hold me down. Feel alive when I'm in this town. Look at these beautiful stars. I wanna drive a faster car. Nothing can break me, nothing can break me. Try not to hold me down. Feel alive when I'm in this town. Look at those beautiful stars. I wanna take a trip to Mars. Nothing can break me, nothing can break me.
Alright guys, it's pretty messy in here, but let me show you what we got. Try to go slow so you can absorb it in. So at first when I started going, it had a nice spray pattern. And then towards the end, when it started to lose compression, it started to turn into this popcorn shit right here, and I'm just kind of spraying out. And so all this popcorn shit that you see is what I was spraying on at the very end, trying to fill the low spots. I went ahead and just did the whole wall there because I'm not using the window, and I'm gonna put a painting over that whole section. Some spots didn't mix as well as others. You can see this goopy stuff right here. That's where it didn't really mix that well. It's kind of bleeding out right there as well. But at first when it was spraying nice, I mean, it turned out really nice. It turned to popcorn shit pretty quick. But overall though, I think I got it to do what I wanted it to do. Could probably use a little bit more here and there. Got a lot of cutting to do obviously, but I was able to fill a lot of this void in here, so that's nice. I just put a lot of the popcorn stuff in there and filled all that section, and then filled it up here so there's no air movement back and forth. And I tried to fill in between the roof and the frame as much as possible. This didn't turn out very well. It's probably going to take a while to cure. It'll probably still cure. I sprayed down the box. This propane box is pretty notorious for condensation because it's exposed to the elements outside, so it's just a piece of metal on the inside and the warm interior. Got that sprayed in. I overall am pretty happy with it. It was quite the experience. So keeping the nozzle at maybe spraying like at a third pressure at first helped out quite a bit. All this is just popcorn stuff that I filled in at the end, and I tried filling in all the gaps, all the creases best I could, and it was just kind of pooping everywhere. Wasn't really filling. I actually wiped this down because it wasn't mixing at that point. I think one of the tanks was empty, so I just stopped. Even got these little cracks filled. Already pretty hard. It hasn't been sitting for too long. The roof, I got a little bit. I wish I could have threw on a whole nother coat up here, right in this area, in these rafters, but it does lift up quite a bit, so I may reuse some of the rigid foam board just to add that extra layer on the ceiling, since that's where all the snow and rainfall hits. So, and all the heat, of course, rises, so that's where it wants to escape. And it's not too bad. It's a little thin, but it has pretty good coverage. Pretty happy with the windows. I didn't get the cover up here. I didn't have enough, and I figured I wouldn't pretty early on. Otherwise, I would have liked to do at least just a thin layer like that. But it's $340 for these 2 tanks, so I don't think I have enough area to cover to justify buying another $340. You guys might be able to get it cheaper, or Amazon has a pretty good deal on some of this stuff if you have ground shipping options, which we don't up in Alaska. So we're gonna let this sit all night. Alright guys, we're back. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut all this insulation off using my multi-tool. I kind of wish I had a wider blade on here, but it's the one I've been using for a while. It's the only one I got. Works all right. Using this Milwaukee tool. It's got I think this one goes up to 12. Probably play with it, 6, 7, 8, somewhere in there's probably all right. Works pretty easy. So probably going to put you on time lapse for this and just have at it. So here we go. Let me turn on this heat. It's chilly this morning. What's our temp in here? It's 48 degrees right now. Let's go ahead and heat it up. 48 degrees. Alright, I got everything shaved down and more or less cleaned up. I didn't run the vacuum or anything, I just swept up and pulled all the coverings off the windows. By the way, this multi-tool works great too. Cleaning up. I didn't cover this area because I thought I would have enough to just lay down a coat, but I didn't. So now I'm kind of regretting that, but that's okay. Multi-tool made quick work of all this, made it a super easy job. Yeah, we're turned into like a insulation spray foam shirt. This is when I was running low on pressure. It wasn't quite as smooth as the beginning that you can see there. Got my propane box covered. I knocked a bunch off now. Alright, I think that's going to do it for this video. I had a pretty good time spraying in all that insulation. Get you all fixed up here. I had a pretty good time spraying in that insulation. I hope you enjoyed what you've seen. If you've never done this before, this was also my first time doing it. So if you're wondering what it looks like or what the experience is like for a first timer, it's pretty easy. It's 80-90% prep work. Make sure your windows are covered, your floor is covered with some kind of cardboard. I use cardboard instead of a painter's cloth because you will step on that shit, and if you step on curing insulation and painter's cloth, you're going to drag that painter's cloth all over the place and expose your floor. So just lay down some cardboard where you can. I laid tarp down on the benches and that seemed to work out pretty good, and then cover the windows with whatever I had, and also covered my electrical connections, and that seemed to have done the trick for what I needed it for. If you will definitely do some overspray, and you'll have some high spots, so you can either get yourself a couple of those insulation knives, and you can hack away at that. You can use a variety of cutting tools. I used this multi-tool, which did pretty good. It actually cut through just like butter. I imagine having a nice wide blade would be just that much better. If you're using a Milwaukee, I think 8 was the sweet spot. You can play with it, see what works for you, but 8 seemed to be the sweet spot where it just cut right on through without any hesitation. What else can I tell you about it? So it's cured overnight, and I don't feel any condensation anywhere. I even had it pumped up in here, and I can tell the insulation is working because I had the heater cranked up and it was 80 something degrees. There was no condensation. It was super, super, super nice. I'm pretty happy with it. Can't believe this is actually happening and working. So I'm excited to get the walls up now, build all the cupboards and everything, because it's going to be a completely new camper. So here's why I like the insulation so far. One, it got great coverage. It got all up in the cracks, and it got behind the frame itself, and it filled all the voids, and that's super nice. 2, it's a closed cell spray foam insulation, so therefore it doubles as a vapor barrier, a wind blocker, and an insect keeper outer, which is all very important. It also has a Class A fire resistant rating, and it has it's pretty dense stuff. I think it's like a couple pounds per square foot, and it does add quite a bit of structural rigidity. So it's nice, which is a nice thing when your camper is made out of a bunch of 1x2s and 1x4s and shit. 'Cause, these things are pretty floppy, and the exterior is aluminum, so it's a little floppy, but it feels pretty stiff now, pretty strong all the way around. And I just took this thing for a drive around town to go get some parts and stuff, and just to see if everything fell off and was on the ground, and so far, no, so that's good. Pretty happy about that. Think it'll do all right when I go overlanding with it next. So, anything else I can tell you about it? Well, one thing I didn't like is that it's pretty expensive. It was $340 at my local hardware store for the 200 square foot package. It did come with everything I needed, though, for the most part. It came with the hoses, the gun, extra tips, grease for the tips. The hoses were even screwed on, which is pretty nice, and it came with a tool if I ever needed to take it off. It came with instructions, goggles, rubber gloves. All of that was included in the kit for $340, so all in all, it's not too bad. Did have to buy the Tyvek suit and the respirator, and you do want to have that absolutely to protect yourself. You don't want to be breathing in those chemicals and insulation and shit, and you don't want that stuff inside of your lungs expanding. It'll make for a very bad day. Also, the Tyvek suit just kept all the stuff off my clothing. I wrapped my shoes and grocery bags, and that seemed to have done the trick. You do want to spray this stuff on in thin layers. It does get super hot, really, really hot. In fact, I was pretty much naked under my Tyvek suit, and I was dying of a heat stroke. It was so damn hot. But luckily, it's a camper, so you gotta do light coats anyways, because you only have about an inch gap to fill. So it wasn't too big of an issue, but it did get hot pretty quick. So one thing to keep in mind. You don't want to start a fire or anything. You don't want to have any open candles or candles or sparks or anything like that going. What else? What else can I tell you that is relevant that I haven't already said? I think I already told you that you want to keep that stuff up to about 75, 80 degrees before application. You want to keep your room nice and hot, or do it in summertime. It's wintertime here, but I told you I got summer stuff to do, so I need to get this done now. But all in all, I mean, it worked out. Even though it's cold as shit outside, it still worked out pretty good in here. Let's see. If it weren't so damn expensive, I probably would have got like a 400 square foot coverage, or even the 600 square foot coverage, but that was like $600-700, and that's pretty expensive. But I think I could have got a lot more even of a spray with that higher pressure, and I probably could have got the depth that I wanted everywhere, and it would have looked super nice. So if you got the extra money to spend, then go ahead and get yourself a big freaking set. I think you'll thank yourself because yeah, it turns all into popcorn shit and doesn't look quite as nice. Not that it needs to look gorgeous or anything, because it's all going to get covered up, but it just seems like there's some benefits to being well mixed and evenly sprayed out and being nice and uniform. But anyways, neither here nor there. It's working great for me now. So I think that's going to do it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope it showed you something. Hope I answered all the questions that you may have had. If I did not, please put those down in the comments section, and I'll try to answer the best I can. Like I said, it's my first time, so I'm not an expert at it, but I do have a little bit of experience now, so it's pretty nice. I had fun. I definitely want to do this again. One tip that I have for you is when you first start spraying, don't go full throttle, because it's going to be a lot of pressure behind it, and you're going to use a lot of material. So do about a third at first, and just feel it, work it, get to know it a little bit, but do about a third pressure at first, because you're going to have a lot of power behind that initially with a full tank. And of course, as the tank depletes, you'll be able to give it full throttle, and it will be fine. And eventually it will not be enough, and it'll just start shooting out popcorn shit everywhere. All right, guys, think I rambled enough. Hope this helped you. Stay tuned for the next episode of the Camper Hack series. I'm not sure what that's going to be yet, but probably laying out the walls or coming up with some kind of something here. I gotta get all the plywood and everything now and get the stain and cut everything out, stain it, or polyurethane it on front and back. I think is what I'm going to do. And it's going to be a process. I don't think I'm going to do it all at once, but stay tuned for that. I'm going to go ahead and put another episode at the end of this video to one of the other Camper Hack videos, maybe the diesel heater one, because that's a pretty new video. Then I'm going to let YouTube choose a video that they think is best for you from a selection on my channel. All right. We'll see if that we'll see how that goes. So we'll see you on over there.